Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So we have some XRP news today. We have some Bitcoin news today. We have some Mica legislation news. We just have a few articles to get through today. All right. So now let's begin here with a little bit of XRP news. This article is titled "Financial Strategist Says XRP Price Has No Limitations." I agree with that. If it does what it's supposed to do, there's no one who could say how high it can go, that it's only going to go this high. Given time, and like I said, giving actuation on things, they have to actually pull off this big switcheroo where the new financial system absorbs a big part of the legacy system. I think that they can. I believe that they can. They already have hundreds upon hundreds of banks signed up. I mean, what's stopping them once the case is over? What's stopping them from taking thousands of banks? Now, someone may say to themselves, 1,000 banks, that's a lot of banks. But when you look at Swift, let's say Swift as an example, who is way behind us as of now. If it changes in the future, then I'll acknowledge that that has changed. But as of now, that hasn't changed. What do they have? Over 11,000, maybe 12,000 banks? So 1,000 banks, 2,000 banks, not that much in my humble opinion. And the commercial banks and the smaller banks definitely could benefit greatly from crypto and will benefit greatly from crypto. Now, there's something I want to say also before we get into this article too deeply. You know, just looking at the articles from yesterday, and this is why they're important to go over, where they were talking about the massive deposit flight, right? And that was devastating news. I mean, the banks are in big trouble. It just is what it is. I don't make up the news. I just report it. But here's why that's positive. See, when it's a negative for them, it's a positive for the new financial system. That's why we have to talk about this. Their negatives are our benefit because they'll need us in order to stay afloat. One new superior thing always absorbs something that's old and lackadaisical. Always. It always happens that way. I watched the Walkman get just completely dominated and pushed out by the CD player. I watch CD players get pushed out and dominated by MP3 players. I've seen this time and time again. Just give an example. Now with the banks, deposit flight. Why? Here's what people need to ask. Why is there deposit flight? That's the thought it should prompt. Okay, there's deposit flight and they're telling you why. And it's because people are looking for yield. They know that their money goes to banks to die. So they're going everywhere else. They're going to crypto. They're going to commodities. They're going to money market funds. That's just a fact. And banks can't compete. Wait a minute. If they congeal with the new financial system, which you've seen them doing yourself, you've seen it, then how do they use the new financial system to compete? Well, let's see. Staking. I told you this before. I'm telling you, a lot of things I've said on this channel have come to pass. Staking. Now, a lot of regular people have benefited from staking, but do you seriously believe that the banks have not looked at that while they're absorbing these technologies, they haven't said to themselves, wait, this is something we could benefit from as institutions. Number one, they could benefit greatly from that as institutions. You know how they play with everyone's money. They're trying to make money off of your money anyway. That's why they never have your money when you want to come to get your 300 grand. You can't even get 300 grand, 200 grand out the bank all at one time. They're asking you, why do you need your own money? Because they lend your money out to make money off of your money. So we know that they're a money making industry, obviously, right? I mean, I'm just stating obvious. So, and they as an institution or as institutions will benefit from staking, but also it's something to offer customers because they've been losing customers dramatically. We have the way for them to bring that back. With speed, by the way, with speed and with scalability, whether you're talking about XRP, XLM, XDC, it doesn't make a difference. All of them have what the banks need. This is what people are not seeing is bubbling below the surface. It just hasn't made waves just yet because they haven't jumped in with that just yet. So you have staking benefits them greatly, puts them back in the game majorly. And on top of that, they get to say at some point, hey, come to us. We're the safe place for you. You know, like I don't know any other, expedient verbiage for that. But they always play it like crypto is dangerous and the banks are safe, even though that couldn't be further from the truth. But that's how they'll play it to the mainstream, and the media will push that. The mainstream media will back them. All right. So they'll say, hey, come to us. We have this thing called staking. A lot of regular people don't know about staking. They don't. And so then what'll happen is any of those bank coins that are chosen, I'm just being logical here. You tell me if I'm not being logical. Any of those bank coins that are chosen, if they're chosen, you'll have a ton of capital locked up on chain. A ton of capital locked up on chain. What does that do to the price? This is just it's about time. It's a game of time, a war of attrition. Attrition. That's a war where it's just about who's going to last longer. That's what this is all about. Until that bell rings, until the end of the match. So you have staking, but then also don't forget delegation. Then you have delegation. You have all of these different things that they're going to take advantage of. They're not in crypto just to play around. And they're not in crypto just for a little teeny tiny gains. Because there are things that make way bigger gains than Bitcoin, but they don't play in that. This is about domination, power, longevity. So they're going to take advantage of every possible little bit of crypto. They're doing it quietly. They're smart. They don't say their ideas out loud. Not very often. And if they do, it's just to a small group of people. And even if they do put it out there in an article or PDF, they're going to make sure it doesn't get traction. Because regular people typically are not going to read anything. That's not going to happen. Regular people are tired from their jobs. They're raising children, things like that. So they're going to come home, kick their feet up. They want to watch something quickly, scroll through YouTube shorts or TikTok or whatever you call it, TikToks. They don't have time to read all those documents where they bury stuff in those PDFs, sometimes 20 pages deep. Right. So the banks will never tell the people what they're going to do ahead of time. That's not going to happen. And not just banks. But when I say banks, I'm really talking about all large financial institutions. So you have staking that they'll benefit from. It solves their problem of deposit flight. It solves their problem of bringing in capital. I've read you all the articles, facts in those articles. We solve those problems. These protocols, these blockchains solve those problems. And if they're smart, they will wield their tools that way and come to these banks and say, hey, listen, we can help you with this. It's not just about cross-border payments. This is way bigger than cross-border payments. This is about the survival of an industry that has been on a decline for a long time. Another thing people aren't thinking about is lending. Crypto and blockchain changes lending forever. Regular people have benefited from it a little bit. The banks have been salivating over that. The different dynamics of lending where they can offer to their customers and say, hey, listen, we have this crypto, and they'll probably after a while, they'll probably have a new verbiage to wrap around crypto to make it even more alluring to their customers who have been given a great distaste for crypto. And rebranding is something that's all done in a lot of different industries all the time. To float an idea that was once frowned upon, and now with rebranding, they make it much more delicious. But anyway, they can come to their customers and say, listen, we have this, crypto or whatever you can invest in here. Then through us and through our people, you don't have to do it yourself. This is how they'll float the idea. You don't have to do it yourself. Through us, we'll lend this out for you to make you a very high yield. Remember in the beginning, at least the beginning of this channel, there were a lot of regulators and legacy institutions that had a problem with the high yield and staking and all of that stuff like that. You even had some exchanges drop staking. Remember that? Okay. When they bring it back, because it's under the banks and other financial institutions, they will unleash staking to have the highest yield possible. In my humble opinion, that's how it's going to go. I could be completely wrong, but when they get involved in something, first they throw it in the dirt to make you drop it. They destroy it to make sure you drop it. Then when they take it and they pick it up, they dust it off, they shine it up, they make sure it's the absolute best for themselves. This is how they typically do things. So yeah, it will have some good yield on it, and they will offer it to their customers so their customers can lend things through them. That's another way that they benefit from the new financial system. And it's just, listen, they didn't leave Bitcoin on the table. Even though they trashed the Bitcoin for years, same people that trashed Bitcoin are the ones who bought Bitcoin. I think the same thing's going on with XRP and a lot of other very bullish cryptos. Trash it now, they get it later, make it, and they benefit from it greatly, as opposed to the people who built it and stuck by it. I think that's, so you have staking, you have delegating, you have lending. I mean, it's going to change the game. But here's the thing. Those few people, not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just speaking my mind. I'm just putting my opinion out there. Nothing more, nothing more. But those people who stuck by those cryptos or are in the game at that time, imagine when all of that is going on. You have the backing of the mainstream media. You have the backing of the banks. You have all of this capital getting locked up on chain. Imagine then what it's going to be. It's going to be unbelievable. Imagine what that could do to the prices of some of these things. So, you know, that's my thoughts on that. I had a couple of questions, and a couple of statements and comments in the comment section. So that's what brought this to mind today, you know. So now let's move on to another article here. So this article here is titled, Mica will transform the EU into a crypto adoption hub this year. So it goes as such. When markets and crypto assets regulation was signed into law in June 2023, a framework for 27 countries was finally in place. Although this was a landmark piece of legislation for a region that represents nearly 20% of the global economy, Mica is serving as the beginning of a 12 to 18 month process of transition, transformation, and customization. That's because Mica includes a, quote, substantial number of level 2 and level 3 measures, unquote, as noted by the European Securities and Markets Authorities, that still must be developed and refined. So there's some ways to go. They still have some ways to go. It says spot Bitcoin ETF approvals are imminent across Europe. Ultimately, it will be much easier to have one framework for all the jurisdictions in the EU, with crypto exchanges and other firms no longer needing a separate license in each country of the Union. In 2024, though, individual countries will still have unique characteristics that must be navigated. For example, if a company is licensed to offer crypto services in Germany and wants to transact in France, France's KYC and AML requirements still need to be separately addressed. And this is one of the reasons why Ripple is so bullish on Mica. And they're talking about Mica because Mica will make it so much easier to operate and use these particular new financial system mechanisms widely. And obviously that means there could be a lot of capital flowing in. Could be, right? We have to see how that all works out. But sure, this is definitely a step forward. It's a bigger step than the West is taking right now. I mean, the West. I mean, the United States is taking as of right now. It says after Mica regulations are implemented and operational, we'll likely see customizations that will allow more people to have a piece of the financial pie. This can include bilateral agreements with the EU from smaller locales to help them achieve more trading volume in advantageous ways they could accomplish or they couldn't accomplish independently. For example, smaller banks in Switzerland don't have EU branches. So once Mica is implemented, they could theoretically execute a bilateral agreement with the EU to reap the benefits of Mica. In my opinion, this all is moving towards and this all is supporting the future new financial system. As you see it being rolled out, you have all of these different Bitcoin companies with deals with and partnerships with banks from Algorand to Ripple to Stellar. You have XDC doing what it does, obviously. Quant doing what it does. They just did something big with the Bank for International Settlements. You've been keeping up with all of their big activities with the Bank of England. I mean, Quant is just dominating at this point. And so now it'll be easier to use these systems. That's what Mica sets up. Of course, there's still a lot left to be done. Of course, it says here, that said, it's unlikely that we'll see fully standardized international regulations across the board. I don't see that happening. I just don't. The world is too fragmented. There's too much disagreement happening. I think the world becomes even more fragmented as there has been infighting within NATO. There has been, not infighting, but like there's definitely disagreement. One may say, well, why are you saying that, Mick? I mean, you didn't read the articles about France and France saying, hey, we may need to step back from the dollar. Look that up on Google. Look that up. If that's not a disagreement internally, I don't know what is. I mean, you're a part of the system, but you don't want to support the so-called top world reserve currency here, the top reserve currency, step back from the dollar. So you have that when it comes to NATO in the West, right? So then to juxtapose that, you have a lot of disagreement within BRICS nations also. They're not just all on one accord. They're not. Sometimes India agrees with them and sometimes India does not, right? I think India actually is leaning more towards the digitalization of local currencies and just using local currencies as opposed to just the one BRICS currency, which is why I think that in the end, they'll probably settle on having both, a dual mechanism, if you will. They'll have the one common BRICS currency that could be used anywhere, but they'll also digitize the local currencies as also for countries that want to just transact in local currencies, right? So, and that's why we've heard both of those ideas put out there so much. So, on both sides. So because of that, that's why it leads me to the thought that the world will continuously, or not continuously, but the world will further be fragmented. And so that's even better for the new financial system. If these companies are paying close attention, Ripple, Stellar, Algorand, Quant, Chainlink, XDC, there's a few of them. There's not really a lot of bank coins, really. But if they're paying attention, they'll be able to pull everything together with interoperability, providing liquidity. A lot of these digital assets are going to be needed, are going to need liquidity because they're not going to be used a lot. Sure, these countries will digitize certain things, but bank runs are going to be, I think, increasing in rate around the world as you see more and more bank systems dying, collapsing. And it's not just the West. It's all over the place. It's more widely publicized in the West. And then I'll say more specifically China as well. They make the big news. A lot of other places do not. But because of that, they have it gets overshadowed that they have liquidity problems. So sure, you can digitize something, but what happens when there's a bank run? What happens when no one is using it and there's low liquidity? Of course, they're going to try to put mechanisms on these things where there's timers now. I think I heard some verbiage like that come out of Europe, and I was actually quite surprised that they were open with that, considering that possibility. Now, listen, I read in maybe an article or two. Who knows if they're actually going to stick with that. And like I said, don't quote me on that. I believe it was coming out of Europe, I believe. All right. This was a while ago. But, I've heard the idea floated multiple times in different places where they'll put a timing mechanism on it where you have a certain window of time to spend this particular capital. And that's another reason why I think a lot of these local digital currencies as well as CBDCs, people are not going to want to use them. They're just not. Which is going to leave the doorway open for a lot of other alternatives, because who wants the money that they received to be on a timer or for a governmental agency or an institution to have that much power? I just don't see. I hope people haven't gotten to that point where they're just bowing down to just anything. I hope not. I'm not a bow down type of person. I'm more of a rebel. I have my own path and I'm not afraid to walk it. But yeah. I think that also could lend to the lack of use of some of those things and then the need for liquidity. And, you have on-demand liquidity, you have instant liquidity. Any of these tokens can create liquidity pools quite easy. I think you've seen automated market makers prove that. I'm pretty sure they did. So, look, Mica is going to be great. We're still waiting to see, the effects of it. And we'll keep up to date with it. So now, let's move on here. What is this article we have here? Okay, so this is a Bitcoin article here. This article is titled, Institutions Look to Bitcoin for Non-Debt Money, says Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan. Non-debt money. Listen, institutions are looking to crypto as a whole. Bitcoin is just the door. They walk through the door, but they're going to want even bigger gains, which means they'll have to turn to other things at some point to make bigger gains. As at some point, I would assume Bitcoin hits like its max reach at some point in the future. And I don't think they're going to wait. A lot of these people, let me tell you something. A lot of these people are older and they understand that time is of the essence. A lot of the people that run these companies, they have the big money. Then on top of that, when you look at investments, I read a lot of articles about, the older people being some of the top investors in a lot of different things. So they know time is of the essence. So there's going to be a push to max to max Bitcoin out. What the max is going to be, I have no clue. I hope it goes to the moon and beyond. I really do. And that will drag everything else with it. But at the same time, because it could reach a high where, you know, maybe it starts to consolidate for a long period of time as everyone's satisfied and, you know, it serves its purpose as a hedge against inflation, they'll start to look to other things, other legit projects. And that's when you have your, well, if Ethereum is not taken down by the SEC, let's just say that. I got to put that out there. It's like there's a balance here. Is Ethereum a moneymaker? Yes, it is a moneymaker. That's here. And then here you have the SEC, you know, looking to go after Ethereum, which hopefully doesn't happen. But I mean, they said it already, so they're going to do it, right? But hopefully Ethereum will be able to fight back and survive that, and people won't just walk away from it. So you have that here. But the legit projects that come right behind Bitcoin, once Bitcoin has, and I don't say had its time, as in it's over for Bitcoin, not at all. I look at Bitcoin like a younger brother to gold. Right? Like, you know, typically if you're talking commodities, I look at silver like that. When you're talking crypto, I look at Bitcoin as a younger brother to gold, where people get satisfied after a while. With gold, it starts to consolidate for long periods of time. At least from what I've experienced, what I've seen, it can consolidate and, you know, it just levels out and is protecting that capital, and people just use it as a true store of value. Right now, so Bitcoin is a little bit of a store of value, but it's more so a moneymaker, right? That's why you get these huge swings in price. But I look at it in the future, maybe those swings in price probably will go away, and it will become more like gold, where the only time you're going to get those big swings in price will probably be when there's real, like there's serious geopolitical tension, or there's something in the financial system that goes wrong, like when the banks collapsed and you saw all of that big explosion in price to gold, and then there was a sell-off, obviously, you know, we all lived through that. And then the price went back up again. But that's only when in those extreme situations. I think Bitcoin will become more like that. And because of that, it'll become more stable, And so then once that starts happening, you got to look to other places to make capital. So then I'm keeping that in mind, because that's when you start to look at, okay, well, what else is in line to receive some of that capital? And a couple of names come up. Ethereum is one. XRP is another one. Solana is definitely up there, and that's like the big four that I hear about all the time. I'm telling you, I can only tell you what I'm experiencing. Those are the big four. I have no Ethereum, but I have to say that it's up there in the big four because it's true. It's true. I've had a little Ethereum, but to use, not to like hold Ethereum. I've never held Ethereum. I'll use it for different stuff, but not to hold. But it's in that big four. All the big money people, they talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana. That's the big four. And I'm thinking real hard. I don't think that there's anything else that's been mentioned more by big money people than those four right there. And that's why I said the other day about Solana. They don't care if Solana goes down. They're just like, hey, fix it. That's all they want, fix it. They're here to make money off Solana. Solana is one of the next in line, period. And when the big money says, hey, this is what we want, this is what we like, this is what we support, that's what it is. Listen, I'm gonna juxtapose something here just to make my point. And you could disagree with everything I've said in this video. That's perfectly fine. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not here to argue with anybody. That's not going to happen. I got a little time on this earth. I'm gonna make it valuable. I'm gonna make it count. And I don't make it count by trying to convince someone of something or by arguing with them. I do make it count by enjoying my time here and just sharing my raw thoughts and accepting that not everyone's going to think like you. That's perfectly fine. Bitcoin. This is how I'm going to juxtapose it. Now, there was a time, I know there's a lot of new people here. They definitely let me know that. I read your comments. I hear them every day, okay? So I know there's a lot of new people here, so maybe you didn't live through this. There was a time when the mainstream media tried to go against Bitcoin, and they were saying, hey, Bitcoin is not green. And, you know, and I still hear a little bit of that. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme and all this stuff like that, right? Now, the big money said, hey, we don't care about any of that. We're going to get some Bitcoin. We don't care about any of that. We're going to push for this Bitcoin ETF. We're going to work behind the scenes. We're going to accumulate behind the scenes. They didn't let that stop them because the mainstream media had a battery in their back from somewhere saying that Bitcoin was a Ponzi scheme, Bitcoin was green. No, they still got Bitcoin. So the same thing with Solana. Solana has some drop transactions. They don't care. I hate to break it to you. they're not looking to use Solana, although the use of Solana definitely supports why it would be bullish to bring in more partnerships, things like that. I get that. I understand that. But as long as they fix it, the big money does not care. It's in line. Same thing with anything else. Just fix it, and we keep the money machine keeps moving. Simple as that. So now, what was this article about? I don't even know. The chief investment officer of crypto fund manager Bitwise says large investors now view Bitcoin as a means of mitigating the risk of economic headwinds. Isn't he just copying what the IMF person said yesterday? We read an article yesterday from the IMF, and the IMF said that Bitcoin had become necessary to, read that in the members only section. I'm getting confused now. My apologies. Read that and read that post in the members only section. I'm jumping out. My apologies, folks. Anyway, he's just copying what someone else said. All right. So that's what it sounds like to me. And it's like, yes, of course. But once again, Bitcoin reminds me of a much, much younger version of gold. Listen, it'll get to where it needs to be. But yes, is it helping people because they're making some gains right now? Sure. Yes, it's helping them mitigate economic headwinds. So now let's move on here. I'm not sure how much we have left because I have to do this auto captioning. Like I said, the auto captioning to put those little words at the bottom, it seemed like it would be simple, doesn't it? Seem like that should take no time at all, shouldn't it? Right? It does. It takes a long time. Technology can only do so much, and have a lot of RAM. RAM memory to make things move quickly. But that process just takes a long time. So I'm trying to be mindful of that as it's getting a little late right now. Hopefully I could get the video out on time. And a lot of people seem to enjoy those auto captions. They're not perfect. They're not perfect. And I don't have time to go through every single word to make sure that every single word is okay. But I hope people understand what is being written. So we have two articles here. I'm trying to figure out if to do them. One is titled Higher for Longer Hits U.S. Bank Corp as Funding Costs Stay Elevated. And then another one is about the housing market, which I think is very important, as many people out there they hope to have a home, and they hope to buy one. Let's do the home price thing here. We'll end off with that. So this article is titled The Outlook. Well, I don't know why it does that. Sometimes these websites, as they're loading stuff up, it drags the website upward. It says the outlook for home prices has changed drastically in just the past month as Fed rate cuts look more and more distant. Yes, but a lot of us have been warning that the Fed was going to do that. Listen, there's times where I get very intricate on the channel. There's times where I choose to take a break and I just don't. But at those times we covered where I was being very intricate and going into great detail with certain things. At one of those times, we were looking at the data on inflation and how every time inflation has gone down because of something the Fed has done, it goes right back up again. And they had not been able to effectively, tame inflation. And so because of that data, and I believe we covered it around September of last year, somewhere around those months around September, because of that data, it became clear that this is what they had been calling sticky inflation from the beginning of last year. We heard a lot of pros talk about sticky inflation. I believe the Fed also talked about sticky inflation. They wanted to see if that was what was going to be occurring. And unfortunately, yes, that's what they have on their hands. They have sticky inflation on their hands. So based on that, there is no way that if I'm thinking reasonably, just that I would think that they would be able to do the cuts that people have wanted them to do. I just don't see that happening. And so, of course, everything else is going to be affected. Home prices are also going to be affected. The banks are going to be affected. Everything is touched. Everything is touched. We'll see how things go towards the end of the year. They're going to revisit this, the idea of cuts. I think they're talking about, at least people are anticipating one in September. Is it September? We'll see if they stick to that, if they actually do it. They have a lot to do right now. We read an article very recently about the loose monetary policy. We had been talking about the first year I was here. We were talking about that, the loose monetary policy. And although they have changed a lot of the, verbiage, I know I use that word a lot, my apologies, but they've changed a lot of the verbiage in what they do. monetary policy really hasn't tightened the way that it would need to in order to bring everything to a more balanced state. This is my humble opinion. You can tell me if you disagree. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the Monday